episode titled Ghostly George. It was a normal day in the Pig family house. Mummy Pig was making breakfast, Daddy Pig was reading the newspaper, and Peppa and George were playing on the carpet. Peppa was building a tower from blocks, and George carefully rolled his dinosaur toward it. Everything was calm until George picked up a small red block and placed it on top of the tower. Suddenly, Peppa noticed that George had become pale. His hands and face looked transparent, as if light was passing through him. "George?" Peppa said, cautiously reaching out, but her fingers passed through him. George smiled, but his voice sounded faint and distant. Peppa was frightened but stayed close. She watched as George slowly glided across the carpet, leaving a faint glow behind him. At that moment, strange things began happening in the house. Blocks rearranged themselves, toys slid across the floor, as if someone was quietly playing with them. The lamp on the table flickered a few times, even though the switch was on. Peppa tried to touch George, but her fingers went through him. He lifted a small block and said softly, "Peppa, look." The block hovered in the air, then gently settled back in place. Peppa realized that George was still here, but not entirely. Mummy Pig came into the room and was surprised. "Why is it so quiet here?" She looked at George, but he seemed normal, playing on the floor. Only Peppa knew the truth. Daddy Pig joined them and said, "Children, remember to tidy up your toys," without noticing that George was semi-transparent. During the day, George glided through the rooms, passing through furniture and walls. Peppa followed him, trying to help. Sometimes the blocks arranged themselves into funny shapes. Sometimes soft footsteps could be heard in the living room, though no one was walking. Peppa and George laughed as they played, but George's laughter was faint and ghostly, coming from somewhere far away. In the evening, Peppa put George to bed. He hovered above the bed, and Peppa covered him with the blanket. At that moment, the toys on the floor began to move by themselves, forming little paths as if someone invisible was playing with them. Peppa reached for George's hand, and her hand passed through his. She whispered, "Do not be afraid, George." During the night, the house was quiet. Peppa woke to a soft creak. She looked at George. He was gliding along the ceiling, watching her. His eyes glowed in the dark, and his voice whispered, "I'm here, Peppa." The lamp flickered, blocks gently bounced, and shadows moved across the walls as if someone were walking through the room. In the morning, George was normal again. He sat on the floor, hugged his dinosaur, and laughed. Peppa sighed in relief, but when she looked at the blocks, they were arranged in the same strange patterns they had formed overnight. Peppa realized that even though George had become ordinary again, his ghostly play had left a mark. Episode titled Peppa's New House. It was a normal morning. There were boxes all around the Pig family house. Mummy Pig was packing dishes, Daddy Pig was carrying things to the car, George was holding his dinosaur, and Peppa was looking at the empty living room. Today, the family was moving to a new house. Daddy Pig said the house was bigger, brighter, and not far from the forest. Peppa was happy at first, but when they arrived, she felt strangely quiet inside. The new house stood on a hill. It had large windows, a long hallway, and stairs that creaked even during the day. Mummy Pig said it was only the old floor. Daddy Pig laughed and started carrying boxes inside. George quickly found a place for his dinosaur in the living room. Peppa went to see her room. She shared it with George as usual, but the room was bigger than before. In the corner stood an old wardrobe that had already been in the house. Peppa opened the wardrobe. It was empty inside, but on the back wall, there were small scratches. They looked almost like letters, but Peppa could not read them. She closed the wardrobe and decided not to think about it. All day, the family unpacked. By evening, the house almost felt cozy. Mummy Pig made dinner, Daddy Pig said the move had gone well, and George fell asleep earlier than usual. At night, Peppa woke up. The room was dark. George was sleeping quietly nearby. At first, Peppa thought she had heard the stairs creak. Then the sound came again, but closer. It was not coming from the hallway, it was coming from the wardrobe. Peppa sat up in bed and looked toward the corner. The wardrobe door was slightly open, even though she was sure she had closed it. Peppa quietly got out of bed and walked closer. Inside the narrow gap, there was only darkness. Then a face appeared in that darkness. It was Peppa, the same as her but wrong. Her smile was too still, her eyes did not blink, and her head was tilted to one side. Peppa stepped back. The other Peppa did not move. She only stared. Peppa wanted to call Mummy Pig, but her voice would not come out. Then the clone whispered, "You are sleeping in my room." Peppa closed her eyes. When she opened them again, the wardrobe was shut. In the morning, she told her family. Daddy Pig said it had been a dream. Mummy Pig stroked Peppa's head and said the new house simply felt unfamiliar. During the day, everything was normal, but Peppa noticed that the wardrobe sometimes opened by itself, just a little. George pointed at it with his dinosaur and said, "Peppa." Peppa asked why he had said that. George only shrugged. The next night, Peppa woke again. The wardrobe was open wider. The other Peppa was standing inside. Now she was not only a face, she stood there completely holding a small box. "I moved here too," she said. Peppa hid under the blanket, but the voice was already closer. "Now there are two of us." In the morning, the wardrobe was empty, but a box was lying on the floor. Peppa opened it. Inside was a family photograph. In it, Mummy Pig, Daddy Pig, George, and two Peppas stood in front of the new house. One smiled normally. The other looked straight at Peppa and did not blink.